Alrighty, it says I am live. First time in forever. All right, so we are here. As y'all can tell by the title, I don't even remember what I set the title to, but I have a new story I've been working on in secret. I've told a few people that. I've kind of shared a little bit of like the cover art that I kind of had created, just using AI, just messing around and stuff. But yeah, I'm ready to reveal it to everybody, I guess. So that's what this is for. So y'all can tell it's called Echoes of Exile. And it's, I guess, like a dark fantasy horror esque in a sense. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Also, I have Alpha Reader Call linked down in the description if you want to go check that out. And you can go and click it and read it first or whatever and kind of let me know what y'all thought about the first draft. Forgot exactly how long it is. It's like 53,000, I think, something like that. I'll have to go back and look, which I'll probably be showing a few things in this stream about it, not just the story itself, but also the land that takes place on it is part of my Lanes of the Abyss universe, which is what Metagore is in. It just takes place on a different like continent. It's a group of isles called the Black Islands. So I'll kind of show y'all the map that I've made of that because I like making stuff, imageries and stuff like that. Maybe even show y'all some character art I've kind of messed around and had made or whatever with some AI help as well as some of my know-how and things like that of the characters from Echoes of Exile. So yeah. Let's see here. Hey, sis, how you doing? Thank you for just stopping in. If there's anything interesting, whatever y'all want me to talk on or expand upon as I go through this, feel free to let me know. And I like talking about stuff. So yeah. Like I said, let me find this real fast. Open this up. It's been forever since I streamed. I probably should have had all this stuff already up. Let's see. It presents. Image file. I can upload an image. StreamYard has changed so much since I was actually using it so much. Let's see. Let's go back to my pictures. I want to show you all the map. I wonder if I can do this without sharing my screen. I'm thinking that's what I get to do. So just bear with me just for a second as I click through all this crap. All right. Yes. Okay. Well, if I know that. All right, so here is the map I've done. I've also got another map just like this with grid lines or whatever, so it kind of helps me with distances and stuff and how long it takes, which I have for all of my stories. But I did this in GIMP, so I made this completely myself. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with it. I guess you not see my mouse, only downside of this. Oh, well. So this is the Black Isles. It is kind of north. You know what? Screw this. Let's just remove this. It'll be way too much for me to go back and forth. Let me just go invite a guest. That's whatever. Leave me alone. Let's see here. Share screen. That's what I want. Entire screen. That's fine. Share. Okay. Now I can go somewheres. Okay, there. Oh, I don't think I am actually sharing. Let me click that. Yeah, thank you. All right. So yeah, here is like a globe I had kind of made a long time ago with the different lands or whatever. It's kind of changed some. Right here was what I had originally done for Black Islands. I knew I wanted kind of like a circular type of island cluster kind of up here. This is Direfell, Panora, Waukee. And I kind of want it up here. I think I might kind of shift it a little bit more over here, but I kind of want it up in this little bit of the abyss, which is the name of the ocean for anybody that didn't know. So the abyss, kind of up in this area somewhere. And this is Metagore and Valkyrie. The Gia Islands are kind of clustered in here. And I just got a text message. Oh, all right. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Let me go back to this one here. All right, so this is, like I said, the Black Islands, how it is now. It's still kind of got that circular type look to it. We got the Drowned Sea here in the middle. Not really much of anything here. It's just kind of very desolate, I guess, and barren and They believe in lore and myth that there are giant sea creatures here, like leviathans and krakens and stuff like that, that live out in the drowned sea, and it's a very dangerous place to go and sail and all that fun stuff. Let me actually just go back over here. Oh, I still have that up. My bad. There we go. All right, so that's what the drowned sea is. Um, and then these little rings kind of around it are just like a lot of stone jagged cliffs or whatever, not much of actual islands, just I forget what they're called. When you just have like rocks sticking up out of the water. That's kind of what's surrounding the drowned sea. But the other things are actual islands. So let's start at the bottom left where it says Bleak Isles. Bleak Isles is actually compiled of three different islands. One right there where it's got Thal's Reach over on the left side. It's not really in the story any, so yeah. But it is part of the Black Islands. The main island right there, the bigger one, it doesn't have a name for the island itself. Same thing with Thal's Reach. I didn't really go through and name them. It's just part of the Bleak Isles. It is a lot of stone and some like foresty type stuff, a lot of dead trees and things like that. Drift is the main village there in Bleak Isles. And the Bleak Isles is known for like a dumping ground for exiles, so criminals, pirates, stuff like that. When you get exiled, you kind of just get sent and dropped off on the Bleak Isles there at Drift Rest. So that's kind of what that is populated with. So yeah. Thornjaw Ridge is mentioned in the story, so I just kind of got it marked a little bit there on the map within that big island. Down to the bottom right, I guess, of where the drift rest is the Wayward Owl. And I thought that would just be something kind of interesting just to kind of have as an island that just kind of floats. It's not actually part of the ground. It's made of volcanic rock, kind of like Hawaii and stuff like that, which is kind of what I had originally intended for the Black Islands to be. That's why it was called Black Islands, because I think of volcanic rock and stuff. I've kind of went away from that somewhat, but maybe some of it could still be from that, I guess. So the Wayward Owl, I felt like would be a cool little thing where it is floating on the water, and with the currents and stuff, it's lightweight enough that it could actually like float around in the water. It's not just kind of stationary. So this one's called Wayward, just because, it's like a wayward sun, kind of going its own way. And so it just kind of goes around. Going to the right, you got New Home Owl, which is the first island that was not really discovered. I have history. Y'all know me. I like history. I got thousands and thousands of years of history made up for this, just like I do Metagore and half the other lands. But originally, the Black Islands was discovered by the Finati, which are people from Fenton, which is another continent. Let me go back to just show this. Come on. What? No, don't save that. Just go click on this. Can I not add? Remove. Add to states. There we go. Okay. I'm still trying to get back into here. So Fenton is this island right up here. It kind of covers a little bit, or this continent. So originally, the Black Islands, like I said, I kind of want it right here, was discovered by them. And they inhabited it. And later, the Defelic, which are the people from Direfell, discover it and start inhabiting it. And that's who mostly inhabits it now, is the Defelic. So that is the island that the Defelic first landed on as a new home. So that's one's called New Home Isle. And their main, capital is Ashenfold. Right here and here. That had been about where they land on. And also, besides Echoes of Exile, I have written a short story, which I've shared with a couple people, like Tillery and stuff. And it takes place kind of right around Ashenfold. And that is the Defelic discovery of New Home. So that's kind of what that is, like the discovery story in a sense. But it's more like rolling hills, some flatlands, plains, and stuff like that. Some rocks and beaches and stuff. But it's more I guess, farmland or whatever in a sense, and raise cattle and stuff. Versus a lot of the other ones that's got a lot of stone, a lot of dead trees and stuff like that, swamps. The black Karens, I can never remember how to pronounce it. I think it's Karens, ain't it? Y'all let me know. My wife always made fun of me. I think at first I was saying Karens. Karens? I don't know. Whatever. You know, those stacks of stones. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Maybe. But yeah, so the black Karens, they're over here. It's like at first I was thinking something kind of like Stonehenge or the Easter Island heads, but I don't think I want it exactly like that. I mean, they're kind of mentioned in the story, but not really into too much detail. But they're just large cairns made out of black stones and stuff like that. A little bit odder and taller than what all the other cairns are, or whatever, that people make. And each island has its own like clan. That's kind of how they're divided up. I guess politically almost, even though it's not very political, but the inhabitants. And I'll get to all that later. And New Home Owl, there's deals a lot with cairns and stuff. North Reach, I just put here just because that's like a northern tip. And also, you notice these little dotted lines between the islands. I've incorporated a ferry system amongst the Black Islands. I thought that would be kind of cool. A ship that's like anchored to chains. The Black Islands is usually covered in a lot of fog, a lot of mist, very spooky, I guess. And they have a lot of storms, rough seas, whatever that kind of also goes into the drowned sea. It's very rough, rocks underneath or whatever. So it's not very safe to sail. So they've decided to build a ferry system where they have a boat. It's anchored by chains on both sides of the boat, and then somebody's inside, like turning a crank or a gear that feeds the chain through it, and it propels the ship that way. So that way, it's less likely to be tipped over. So that's what these dots are, or these dashed lines are between the islands. This is kind of where the ferries are. Around the Bleak Isles and New Home Isle, up north of it, you see the Grave Drift Shoals, which is shoals. It's a graveyard of ships that didn't make it. You know, like I was talking about, all the rough seas and storms and things. So that's kind of what that is just filled with. It's like a ship graveyard in that area. The island on the right side is Gravehook Isle. It is a lot of forest with a little bit of mountains up at the top. The forests are kind of called the Quiet Woods, just because the inhabitants are very quiet and they are very, I don't know if I want to say secretive or hidden, but they build the homes inside trees, inside like burrows and stuff like that. They don't really build buildings too much. I mean, there might be some, but not much. So, Gravehook Owl, up at the top, you got Nettle Point, which is mentioned in the story. It is a place where they have a salt vault, which is a vault that they have into like a cave, underground cavern type ordeal where they keep memory vessels, I guess. I'll explain what that is later. But they got memory vessels and other things kind of stored down there. Then you got the mountains, which is the Black Crog Mountains, because I wanted kind of black stones and stuff. And they have Crog Watch, which is like a watch point or whatever up there. Just to the left of that, between it and those outer rings for the Drowned Sea, is the Hollow Straits, which is another very dangerous sailing area, kind of like the Grave Drift Shoals, where it's a lot of storms, a lot of wrecked ships. The Hollow Strait has a lot of false, what's it called, like false bottoms or whatever, or deceptive depths in the water, where it might be like really deep and then gets really shallow real fast because the rocks underneath it. So it just tears up the underside of your hulls and keels of your ships and stuff. So it's not a very safe and pragmatic, I guess, travel route right there. Then you got Fangao, which is the smallest of the major islands, which is the only place in the points where the story takes place on that time frame that is still inhabited by the Fanati. the others have been basically wiped out in a sense by the Tefillic. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I was like, it's like America. You know, we had Native Americans and other indigenous tribes or whatever inhabiting America, and then the English come by and they're like, hey, we discovered it. And they're like, who's here first? And they're like, nah. It's kind of like that with the Fanati. They discovered it first, and then the Tefillic came by. I was like, oh, this is ours. We discovered it. And they're like, no. And they're like, well, you can't say no if we kill you, I guess. So they kind of took over. And that was the only one that's they didn't take over. It's a lot of swamps and stuff like that in there. And they have poisonous herbs and stuff like that. A lot of people that made up Fangao were herbalist and other things, and they made like poisons, they made hallucinogenic drugs and other things of that nature, I guess. That's what kind of kept them being able to save themselves from the Tefillic when they started to inhabit the islands. And Gravehook Isle and some of the inhabitants there also have started using some of those hallucinogenics and stuff like that. Then you go over to the big long one on the right or the left side, and that whole island is called Dejira's Spine. Now, in my world, Dejira is the one true god over the actual world. She is depicted in different ways in different religions. In Medagore, it's Afria. Everybody knows her. She's the goddess of peace. Sharp tongue, always just like, it's like, fuck y'all. Y'all are stupid. Leave me alone. You know, she doesn't like being called a goddess. But yeah, she is the one true god over the world. And like I said, she's kind of in different religions in different ways. And Dejira is her actual name, which is revealed in the second book of Medagore, the Sovereign Duties. And it's usually in reference in the world as a plague, Dejira's plague. When misfortune happens, when bad stuff starts happening to you or whatever, it's Dejira's plague. You know, she's cursing you. So this being a very rough land, most of it being mountains, like very high mountains, very sharp rocks, all this, you know, the fog, all the storms. It's kind of like a bad place. And for like Tillery, who love all the details, thank you, who's read the 12th Captain, which is the short story that I kind of wrote about this, as well as Echoes of Exile. When people start reading that or whatever, you'll learn that it is very, like I said, it's a dark fantasy horror-esque, so it's not a very lovely place to live. So people named it, since it's like the backbone of the islands, they share a spine. Also, the mountains like a spine. So there's that. The spine walk, it's not really drawn too well on here. It just looks like the little center part, but the Dejira's Spine is divided into two sections. One is like the Sinking Glade, which is like a swampland that is underwater like half the year, basically. They originally, the Fanati, when they discovered it, had started building villages there, and then it flooded. And they realized that they couldn't do that because it was going to stay flooded because of the tide half the year. So then they kind of went further south, which they made Marrowfen, which is a little bit more higher up, so that's where they could actually live at that point. And then you got the actual mountains down there on the south side of Dejira's Spine. There is mountains kind of connecting it, and in one part of the history, there's like an earthquake type thing, and the mountains split. So there's this narrow passage that leads from the Sinking Glades up to the main part of Dejira's Spine, and they call it the Spine Walk. I think I figured it out. It takes, I think like 5 days walking, something like that, maybe a week, walking from one end to the other of the Spine Walk. And it's like very narrow. A lot of times you can't even like pass somebody else. It's like shoulder to shoulder, just a very narrow passage, but it's called the Spine Walk. So that's what that is. Rivermark is just right at the end of the Spine Walk whenever you start kind of getting out of that point. And that was like a trade hub between the other islands or whatever, where they could. Stone Harrow is also mentioned in the story, and it is originally going to be a fortress for the Defelic. That's when they fled to the Black Islands. They was just kind of out discovering it, and they came across it, and then eventually made their way there with all the stone and stuff. And they was going to make it as a foreign type fortress, in case something happened to Direfell, because you got Penora, which is very aggressive, very war hungry type of country, as well as Waukee, which is also very aggressive and war hungry, right there by Direfell. And Direfell is not quite as aggressive, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to keep saying those same words, but they're a little bit more peaceful and normal, I guess you could say. So he's like, you know what? Let's find some other place and build like a hideaway in case we get invaded and they try to take over. We have this other piece of land in the sense that we can meet at and talk in private and stuff and whatever, make war plans. So that's what Stone Harrow was originally going to be, but things didn't happen that way. So, yeah, but that's kind of the idea for all of that. Let me see here. I'll go ahead and show y'all. There's two main characters in the story. Let me stop screen. Is that this? Remove from studio. I'll stop screen right there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Now let me add images. Can I add multiple? Oh, I can't. Okay, let me do one more here. So I can show you both of these. Can I add both of them at the same time? No, I can't. Why not? Okay, well, this is the main character. This is Kaylin. All sounds interesting. Can't wait to read it. I will check out the forum. Thanks, appreciate it. It's like I said, links down in the description or whatever. Just set up the same way as always is. But yeah, this is Kaylin. He is a siren. Is his race, and I wish I could zoom in. Again, I probably should have just done it sharing screen. Oh, his face, you notice he doesn't really have much of a nose. It's kind of like more flat. Still has like a ridge down the middle. But my sirens have like gills on the side instead of nostrils. So it's kind of what you kind of see a little bit. He's got a scar on his forehead, roughly cut hair that he cuts himself with his dagger, stuff like that. Also, you can notice in his hand, he's kind of holding like a little flask. Which is something I actually need probably to add more into the story. It's mentioned early on, and then I kind of got away from it one way or the other. So yeah, I need to go back and do that. But he's got that. He's got his little blade. It's mentioned being like dull as a spoon almost. It's not going to cut anything easily. But dull stuff, hurts the worst when you get cut because it just tears and rips. It's not nice and clean and doesn't cut like butter. But this is Kaylin. I forgot what his last name was, like Vyrik, I believe. Vyrik, something. He was a leader. He's from Direfell. He's a Defelic. He was part of a military undercover cell group, and he was kind of like the leader of it. It was a group of 11 people, which Tillery kind of knows some of that semblance. Between the 12th captain and the story, there's a lot of like overlap, like lore in a sense. Just like quick rundown on the 12th captain. It's 11 people or 11 ships, 11 captains and their crews made it to Black Islands from Direfell. That's their original discovery. And it's 11 because there are 11 main houses in Direfell, each family. So each family kind of sit one ship. And this and that, and then people start kind of disappearing and this and that and yada yada yada, and then a 12th one just kind of appears mysteriously. Well, Kaylin, his cell group has 11 people, him and 10 others, and they all have code names, like military code names. It's just easier that way you're not saying somebody's real name for privacy issues in case somebody gets abducted or whatever. So his code name is Shade. And it's because he likes to work in the shadows. The whole cell group is like an undercover, type ordeal, and stuff like that. One of his other ones, let me actually add, I didn't add this one. I wasn't going to show this one, but I will now. Is this young lady. This is Taria. You'll hear her name a lot in the story. She was also in his cell. And there's kind of like hints and references that her and Kaylin were kind of like lovers, whatever. They kind of got some banter. And especially later on, there's mentions of, kind of being more than just friends, I guess. Just, nothing too crazy in words, but yeah. So yeah, she's a fawn or a satyr, female fawn. So she's got a little horn. She's got the fawn legs, whatever. And she was part of the group. And her code name is Snare, because she's ones that likes to set traps and kind of go looking for traps and stuff like that and kind of disarm them. So that's kind of what her job was in it. But yeah, so Kaylin, and he's there with 10 others. And spoiler for the first chapter. I mean, that's about it. It's kind of setting up the whole story, so I don't see it as a spoiler. But everybody except Kaylin in his cell gets killed. They die. And then he manages to get out. He makes it back to Direfell, and he is exiled because the whole mission just kind of went sideways. He got his cell killed and all this. So he's being exiled, which is how he ends up on the Black Islands as an exile. And yeah, that's where the story picks up for the most part. You see the bot mission and things. And second, let me get a drink real fast. And then I will talk about this young lady. This is Lyra. She is another exile. And Kaylin is kind of introduced to her when he gets there. Basically, she kind of comes off the ship with him, but she doesn't come off as an exile like he does. He had been chained, or when they unshackle him right before they kick him off. She comes off all happy-go-lucky, whatever. And then some of the greetings or whatever when he gets there as an exile, the first time he's showing up, I'm giving him a driftwood token and stuff like that, which I'll get into after a while. Doesn't happen for her. She just kind of gets in, just kind of whatever, and she kind of tags along. And she is like the thorn in Kaylin's side. Had so much fun writing their chemistry and stuff. But she was an exile. She had actually been exiled years previous to Kaylin being exiled. That's why she didn't get all the same treatment. She was already there. She was just on that ship for other reasons. And yeah, that's about it. As a race, she is a Selkie, which in my world, I want most things to kind of look elven. That's why she has the elven ears. Kaylin should have, no, not as much. I was about to say he should have the elven ears as well. But she can kind of turn into what I call a Selk, which is like a seal, because Selkies, seals a lot of folklore. So I have that as a wildlife in my world. And honestly, in the story, most of the races don't have anything to do with what they actually do in the story. Unlike Metagore, some of them do magic, some of them don't, this and that. I try to keep this one very grounded because the horror aspect of the world and environment kind of takes precedence there. So, but she is a Selkie, so she's got more of a grayish, pale, sickly color just because of that, skin-wise. She always has this little satchel where she keeps little things in. She's got this little charm on her neck, stuff like that. She keeps her hair braided some, now and then it's not, but usually in the story it's referred to as being braided. This and that. And like I said, they the interactions between them. Like I said, Kaylin and Taria were lovers. They had some nice banter and this and that. And the title of the story is called Echoes of Exile. So obviously Kaylin's being exiled. Echoes in the sense of things repeating, in a sense, past things getting brought back up, this, that. And Lyra is like the echo of Taria in a sense. Caitlin's at first is kind of very hesitant, just kind of headstrong. It's like, no, just leave me alone. You're annoying because she's just like always just kind of showing up like, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, fucking leave me alone. That kind of attitude. And then she starts kind of rubbing off on him and stuff. And they kind of go on this journey together because Caitlin is determined to figure out why his botched mission went so bad, because it's supposed to be an easy in and out or whatever. There was a traitor within the group or something. The intel that they was fed wasn't accurate, and the whole mission was a setup. So he's kind of determined to figure out why and how, who, all those kind of questions. And that's what his goal was, getting to the Black Islands. He's like, I'm going to start trying to figure this out. And she's just like, I'm going to kind of follow along, just kind of do whatever, And then they start uncovering a bunch of secrets and all this kind of stuff together. And eventually in the story, Caitlin starts seeing bits of Taria in Lyra. Just kind of like her personality, the banter, just different stuff. I know this image looks kind of more doom and gloom with her face, as Taria is always like smiling. It's like, but Lyra is very kind of happy. Like I said, it's kind of happy-go-lucky, just kind of cutting up, just making jokes and shit. So yeah, it kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and all that fun stuff. Put me back there. Thank you. I did not mean to do that. Let me remove that. Yeah, can I remove these now? Remove and remove. There we go. Okay, so there was other stuff I want to talk about. Forgot exactly what. Oh yeah, okay. I got some key points over here. Let me open that back up. Okay, so let's see here. Black Islands kind of explain the terrain, being mountains, cliffs, some swamps, some forest, a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so let's get down to the clans. Let me, I already removed it. Add image. Add SH. There we go. Let's see here. Looking forward to the character relationships and how they develop. Yeah, I had so much fun. I like characters that are like one extreme or another. Like in Metagore, my favorite ones we're writing for was Cornelius, because he was so fucking just depressed and down on himself all the time. Caprin, because you just never knew what he was going to say. And then Darius, because of just the anger and stuff towards certain things. Gallic and Valar, maybe not quite as much, because they was kind of more, neutral. And I like gray characters for the most part. So yeah, so just writing their dynamic and some of their goofiness. Like one point, I forgot exactly what was going on in the story, but Caitlin's like, no. Oh, I think it's there's this folded hide piece that's kind of cursed almost. And Lyra goes to touch it, and Caitlin's been kind of holding on to it. And he's like, no, don't touch it. And she's just like, it was about to, he's like, if you touch it, you die. And she's just like, oops, and just kind of flicks it or whatever. And he just kind of looks at her. And he's like, you remind me of somebody. And she's like, oh, they die too? And he's like, yeah. Just shit like that, just kind of like, you just, I don't know. I enjoyed writing their banter. Their banter is fun. I read some of the stuff to my wife, and she's like, is this us? I was like, no. Every story I write, people's like, is this you and your wife? People used to think I wrote Brighton and Kalama based off of me and my wife. I was like, no. But yeah, that's about my wife's relationship, just kind of a bunch of banter back and forth and shit. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. All right, so the clans, like I mentioned, each island, 5 main islands. You got Bleak Isles, New Home Isle, Fang Isle, Gravehook, and Azure Spine. Each of those kind of have their own clans, since they don't have like an actual, kingdom of Black Islands. It's just kind of clan type base. So for the first one, let me move this over here so I can't see it very well. The first one I'm going to talk about is Clan Ashenfold, which is on New Home Isle, based out of Ashenfold as their capital. Um, each clan, I got a bunch of stuff written over here for my histories. Each clan has different rivalries, grudges, customs, stuff like that. Ashenfold, its origin is a slow-moving tide of farmers, shepherds, and like just regular builders with wood stuff for their buildings and stuff like log cabins and things like that. Nothing like crazy, like into the trees or into the stones. Just regular, homes, huts, and stuff. Early history, they settled in New Home Isle and tamed its scorched, barren terrain. Ritual burnings and cairn building became part of their faith, symbols of rebirth through hardship. So, like I mentioned earlier with the cairns or cairns or whatever, they kind of do that. That's how they kind of keep up with their history and about people and doing other type of things. They build them a lot, as well as, like I said, they have farmland and stuff, and they have ritual burnings that they do, where kind of like what we do nowadays with farmlands. You grow crops, and then before the next crop, you burn the fields to get rid of all the weeds and stuff like that. They did it, and with the thought of it cleansing the land in a sense, that's basically what you do it for. You're cleansing it from of the weeds and other little things like that, so it's ready for the next set of crops. What else we got here? Their motto is "What burns grows." That's like their motto. I like clan mottos. I did that for all of them in Metagore. Be the gods that guide us. Be the gods that watch over us. Be the gods, or be no shame brought upon us. Was centuries. Let's see, what is it? Until the sun sets in the east, we will defend and serve the west, which was Alberans and different stuff like that. So I've made all of these different little mottos or whatever. So what burns grows, since that kind of plays into both, they're burning and everything else. Let's see here. They maintain ancient ruins and believe the land must be remembered by stone. So it kind of goes into the cairn ordeal. Each warrior has a heartstone, which is mentioned on one of the characters in the story. Having a heartstone doesn't really mention. I don't think exactly why they have it. It's just kind of like our military, when they get back, they get like little badges or whatever. Purple hearts, whatever ribbons, just different things like that as a ceremonial item. I figure something like that is a heartstone, which is a carved rock almost that kind of looks like fire. And it's passed down between like mentor and student, or like in medieval times, like a knight to a squire or something like that. Somebody underneath you. You get it from whoever was over you, your supervisor, your whatever. They're kind of resilient, philosophical, and quietly proud. Their rivalries, they keep their distance from Clan Bleakhorn, which is from the Bleak Isles, bleak, and have long-standing cultural kinship with the Hollowshade, which are from Gravehook Isle. And then they have different titles, like different stone wards, like a stone mother, stuff like that, which one of the characters in the story is a stone mother, which is someone who just kind of cares and kind of keeps up with the cairns and cairns, whatever, making sure that they're kept tidy, any that's kind of starting to fall or sag, kind of straighten them back up, this and that. They're kind of the watchers of those. And then they also have titles like Flame Sister or Flame Brother, which isn't mentioned in the story, but it's the people that's more in charge of the ritual burnings and stuff like that. Then we have the Clan Bleakhorn of the Bleak Isles, which is where Driftwood is, which is where Kaelin first arrives at the Black Islands at. And let's see here. They are formed mainly of slaves, exiles, different stuff like that. Okay, Mr. Fantasy Writer. I love my world building. I have I'm reading off like a little, it's a 10-page bullet point just for the stream, and my history is fucking, I think, like 40 pages long just for the Black Islands. So yeah, I do like my world building, you know that. But yeah, the Bleak Islands, like I said, a lot of exiles and stuff like that. They don't really. None of the clans really have much of a political structure in a sense. They don't have like a ruler or a leader too much, especially the Bleak Isles. The Bleakhorns don't. But in the story, it would appear that they probably have one of the more leader-wise because they have elders that kind of just adopts the role of leader upon themselves, even though they're not. It even mentions at one point that that kind of goes against the customs of the clan, but what can you do? But either way, so they're there. Like I said, there's a lot of exiles and stuff like that. I don't want to read all of this. Let's see here. What else? They pride themselves on being freeborn and unruled, which is kind of what I was just talking about. Every attempt to govern has ended in blood. Their insignia. Did I mention that for? Oh, I didn't even fucking. Did I delete that? I guess I deleted it or didn't put it on this. The like insignia, the flags, which isn't mentioned. I don't think hardly at all in the story. I think there might be one mention of the one from Dajir Spine, maybe Exiled. I don't know, can't remember. Well, the motto is "No one owns the sea." Again, being free, not really being governed by anything like that. That's just kind of their motto. Like I said, they're descended from pirates, exiles, and other criminals. Loyalty is earned, not inherited. So they don't trust you just because you show up. It's not like innocent until proven guilty. It's like no, it's the other way around. You have to earn your loyalty and stuff like that. Every clan member carves their crimes or deeds into a driftwood they carry on them, which is called a drift mark token. And originally, I was going to have the words that they write on their drift mark tokens referred to as a drift mark, and then the actual piece of wood's the token. But I think I might just kind of just say, and just refer to a drift mark token in short as a drift mark, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that might be a little confusing to some people. I'll see. I can't remember exactly how I wrote it in the story too much, but I know that was kind of my thought process originally. But it's like a shallow piece or like a thin piece of driftwood of some sort. And usually there's like a hole carved into it, and they would string it onto like a rope or a belt, and they would wear it as a belt, as like a little flap just kind of dangling from it or whatever. There's one, maybe two people that's mentioned having it, wearing it like a necklace almost, but they would just be given when they become exiled, which happens to Kalen when he gets there, which is one of the things I was talking about. It didn't happen to Lyra because she wasn't a new exile, but they'd give him a blank piece of driftwood, and he would carve, any sins, deeds, whatever that he wanted to into it, or names of people that he wants to remember. It's their way of saying, like, giving their own biography in a sense, I guess. If someone was a thief, they could write thief on it and they'd wear it so other people would see it and be like, oh, he's a thief. Oh, this, that. So more what they are. That's like I was talking about, loyalty isn't earned. They don't know anything about you if you ain't got one. So they really distrust you. They'd rather trust someone that they know is a thief, that they know they can, kind of watch where they're putting their hands, or, know somebody's a liar. Like, I'm going to take whatever they say with a grain of salt, instead of just some random person that they don't know anything about. They'd rather know something about you. And you're kind of left to good faith to carve what you want in it. And a lot of them, being exiles and criminals and stuff, are kind of like, bro, it's like, yeah, I killed 10 people. I did this. I did that. They're kind of, a little gloating, got a little bit of an ego. So they're happy to do that. So that's kind of what Driftmark token is. That's just kind of what the Bleak Isles The bleak horns on the bleak owls kind of do. Uh, Marriage isn't sacred. Line shoes shift like tides. Even though loyalty is earned, they kind of just flip flop wherever they want. They're criminals, they're crooks, they're whatever. But they believe that breaking an oath is a blood crime. So if you tell somebody you're going to do something and then you don't do it, that's sentenciable to death. They're like, yeah, no, fuck you. So yeah, they're fiercely independent, optimistic, or opportunists, and daring and stuff like that. Is some of their traits. They're kind of despised by most of the other clans because they're exiles. A lot of the other clans aren't exiles. They're just people that have, you know, uh, stayed, I guess, after the founding. Their ancestors or whatever. People on the Bleak Isles are just exiles. Some of them might have been born or raised there, but not much. So yeah. They're weirdly allied, though, with Clan Felward, which is from the Fang Isles, because of black market reasons. Again, criminals, exiles, black market, yeah. And like I said earlier, Fang Isle has a lot of like hallucinogenics and poisons and stuff like that, herbs and things. So yeah, they don't really have too many titles, just because they just kind of do whatever they want. So they don't give titles. The elders, I refer to them as elders, and that's about it. The only title that they have is unwritten, which is what they refer to as Kalen. It's people that have a drift token or drift mark token that doesn't have anything written on it. They're unwritten. They're a blank slate. They know nothing about them, type Bordeaux. So that's not really a good name to have around them. The next clan is Clan Felward, which is from the Fang Isles. They're a blend of herbalists, some outcasts, some mystics who took refuge in the swamps of the Fang Isles. Let's see here. Like I said earlier, there are a lot of Fanatis, people from Fintan and stuff like that. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. They kind of. Do I not have? Oh, okay, down here. Okay. Let's see here. Their motto is "We sink, we rise." It's kind of play on of swamp is still kind of underwater, but it's still a little bit of land, and roots and stuff from the trees are above. There's stones that sink. Yeah, stuff like that. They are masters of bog lore and potioncraft. They use songs to guide them or whatever. Songs is kind of something very noticeable with them or whatever. It's kind of they sing along with the "We Sink, We Rise." There's a song kind of about that almost. And the story of step on stone, you walk alone. Step on root, you keep your foot, something like that. I was saying stones sink, stepping stones. You want to walk on the roots of the trees and stuff. So stuff like that. They tattoo themselves with ink for like family deaths and betrayals that they've survived and stuff like that. So they've got all kinds of different tattoos, and then there's other tattoos, not just those, but they cover themselves in tribal type tattoos, kind of like the Alberians and Medagor brand themselves after battle. These people actually tattoo themselves with ink for different reasons and stuff. They are known to speak in riddles or mud truths, which are like statements that are kind of technically true, but a little misleading, kind of muddied. Kind of like I was talking about that. The songs, their songs are a little bit of riddles and stuff. You got to figure out some things like that. And they are descendants of, like I said, the Fanati, and they speak a different language, or they have a different. Not necessarily they speak a different language, like in the story or anything, but their native language is different. In the story, they still speak the common tongue of everybody else. which is something else I got to do for the story is work more on my languages. Y'all know I love my languages. I got like 11, 12. So I got to develop some more of those as well as, one sec, I'll get to it here in a minute. Traits, they're kind of secretive, resourceful, uncanny, uh, different rivalries with Hollow Shade because they accused them of stealing some sacred herbs. Like I said, Grey Folk Isle, which is where Hollow Shade is. They started using some of the herbs and toxins and hallucinogens and stuff like that for things. They're tolerated by the Bleak Horn some. Again, black market trades and stuff like that. And they kind of have like an uneasy truce with Clan of Exile, which is from Desir's Spine. They have different titles. There's two that's mentioned in the story. One's Mist Keeper, and the other's a Fen Speaker. Now, the Fen Speaker is almost like an oracle in a sense, or a person who kind of reads somebody. I guess not really an oracle. They don't really see the future too much like an oracle would, but they can read people, see their past, things like that. And they don't speak. They speak in sign language. So that's something else I got to do. I got to develop some sign language for that. There's, I think, just one scene or one chapter that deals with the Fen Speaker. And they're doing like sign language and things. That was fun. So, yeah. Hollow Shade, which is the clan from Gravehook Isle. They're kind of more historians, a little bit of some old faiths and stuff. They're also the ones that actually kind of discovered the Fanati's old religious temples and stuff that happen to be on Great Folk Isle or some of these other islands when they kind of discovered it. And they're like, oh, this is stuff from the gods, because they still don't want to believe that other people inhabited the place first, things like that. So yeah, they have a lot of land or a lot of tombs and stuff like that. Let's see here. They have different ancient secrets that they kind of keep on to. Like I was talking about stuff that they discovered that the Fanati had previously, different ruins and temples and other things like that they don't openly share with other people. They like to be secretive and kind of keep to themselves. Like I said, the woods is called the Quiet Woods. They kind of they don't talk much. They're very close to keep their stuff kind of close to their chest. They don't want to show their cards. Let's see here. They believe the abyss holds the dead, not just physically, but spiritually. So they believe the ocean or the seas and stuff is more where your souls can end up going, almost like a bad thing or whatever. Kind of like hell, I guess. Maybe not just like that, but just in general. Let's see here. So their motto is all voices fades, but ours. It's because they believe they know the truth, in a sense. Their customs, they keep, history, different rites and rituals and stuff that they do. They believe forgetting the dead invites the sea to take the living, which kind of goes along with the 12th Captain. If y'all read that or whatever, the whole play on of that. If you forget things, the universe, the world sees it as a crime, or the sea in a sense. So they punish you for it. Let's see here. They wear masks. If y'all, I don't know. See, let me find that real fast. I don't know if y'all can see it right now. Let me find. I actually had two made up for this live stream. I didn't know which one I wanted to use. Come on, where is it? I went ahead and went with this as my thumbnail. Add a stage. There we go. So the mask, that's from Hollow Shade, Clan Hollow Shade. I have another one made up of a different mask, wherever I like to, different text on the thumbnail. But yeah, and you can tell kind of like the land, the islands, and the rocks. That's kind of the reason why it's called the Black Islands. A lot of dark stones, rough rocks, kind of turbulent seas, fog. But well, so let's go back over here. Let me get back to my other thingy. My other thing, where was I? Yeah, so they wear masks during ceremonies to kind of blur their identity, as well as they like to wear masks just in general. But they do switch out masks, and they don't have just one mask. So if you read the story, I don't know if that's really clarified that they have different masks. Um, but I do believe there's twice that one character is mentioned wearing a mask, and I think it's described completely different. So I might need to go in kind of make sure that's explained that they have different masks that they just wear. Some have certain, occasional uses, others don't. So yeah, but let's see there. It would be a cool video. It would be. I love video games. I want to make one. No, don't get me started on trying to make something. But yeah, it would be. I think that would be fun. I would be very open to anybody wanting to do any kind of adaptation of my world, my lands, my people, my stories, whether it's video games, TV, movies, whatever. I think it'd be cool. Um, but yeah, so they wear masks. Just kind of do that. Some of the masks are to honor their ancestors. Again, forgetting the past is a crime. If you forget the dead, the sea takes the living to that ordeal. So they try to remember their past by doing these different rites and stuff. Um, Also, something that they kind of do, man, it's mentioned in the story. It's also mentioned in the 12th captain, is there's this bone shard. Usually it's like a just a shard of bone, but down in teeth or whatever. As mentioned, if it's an ancestor's, it works better, but it's supposed to keep you grounded and not go as delusional and stuff like that. And usually they wear them on their necklace as like a little token or whatever. But you just stick it in your mouth and kind of suck on it, chew on it, and whatever, press it between your teeth. Some of the folklore within the world is, you could even keep it under your pillow at night or whatever if you don't want it in your mouth. But it's supposed to keep you grounded and to remind you of the past. Like I said, like an ancestor bone, every time you're chewing it, sucking on it, you're remembering them, that person, whoever it was. So that's why it works better, apparently, with someone you actually know or kin to or whatever versus just some random bone. But they believe, still a random bone, you're remembering something that has previously died, even if you didn't know them too well or at all. So that's a little bit of folklore in there. It's kind of in the story as well as the 12th Captain short story. So that's kind of what that is. They're quiet, they're kind of eerie. Let's see here. The rivalries, they're distrusted by Clan of Exile, which is from Desire Spine, and Clan Felward from the Fangals, which I was talking about them starting to use some of their herbs and other toxins and things. And they kind of have like a quiet alliance with Ashenfold from New Home Owl. Some of their titles is like Speaker of the Dead and Warden of the Grove and stuff like that. As well as they never really sit still. They move a lot. They like almost constantly are moving, shifting. I'm thinking more like old, like before Native Americans became Native Americans, like the people from Russia that kind of migrated over. They're moving, following game and buffalo and bisons and stuff. Set up camp, hunt, the herd go somewhere else. They just kind of keep going and stuff like that. So just kind of constantly moving in that sense. They might set up camp for a couple of days or whatever in the trees, this and that. That's also why they don't build homes, is because they're constantly moving. They make just quick little shelters here and there. And then they kind of shift around the woods, whether it's just not being able to sit still for a long period of time or, hunting different animals for meat and stuff and kind of following them around the woods. And that's another reason why it's called Quiet Woods, because, even if there are stuff there, they're very quiet because they're constantly hunting things. So they don't want to disturb them and things like that to spook them. So there's that. There's also, I mentioned earlier, memory vessels, which is something that they started to make along with those bone shards. A memory vessel is usually a piece of wood. Now it's a piece of hide. There's actually the main one in Echoes of Exile is a folded up piece of animal hide with some ink on it. but they're usually some type of wood or hide or whatever that they have, and they either put ink on it or they actually carve into the wood or whatever. And it is a depiction of like a memory name, whatever. It's kind of like the driftmark tokens I mentioned earlier from the Bleak Isles, but it wasn't really necessarily what you've done. It's just something you want remembered, like a family member who passed or something like that. And it could be a bunch of different things. And they use some of those hallucinogenics plants, some of the toxins from some of the wildlife, which I developed even more wildlife, which y'all know I got so fucking much. I've added more just for this. I've added some frogs and crabs and eels and another type of bird, another creature that's kind of like a reptilian type thing. I kind of think of it like a crocodile with some fur, in a sense, and 6 legs. So I've created a few more, but there's some of them that produce like different toxins, like the marrow toad that I created, or the viper jack snake that I created. They have different venoms and toxins and stuff, as well as different plants that have hallucinogenic properties, I guess. That is a lot common in Fang Isle, but also some other places. That's one Fang Isle, the fell word there, kind of really specialized in it. And they kind of use that to coat mainly, like I think whisper blooms is one of the plants I think is mentioned in the story. They use it kind of ground up or whatever with some other like oils and stuff, and they kind of paint or rub over the memory vessel to anchor in the memory, is what they believe. And then when you're holding it, they also do it with some of the masks for the ceremonies. So when you're holding it or you're wearing it and you're kind of inhaling the fumes or it's kind of seeping into your skin from you holding it, you start hallucinating. And they believe that those hallucinations is the memory that is anchored into that memory vessel. And they want to hallucinate, and that's how they witness what happened, in a sense. So that is, yeah. So there's that. So that plays in part of Echoes of Exile. You'll hear about memory vessels a lot. Let's see here. And then we got another clan for Dazur Spine, Clan Vexhold. Was originally formed from the remnants of the Defelic Engineer Corps that was sent there to kind of make it into like a stronghold. And since I mentioned earlier, kind of fortified like a fortress there, and stuff. The name Vexhold means those left behind in one of the ancient dialect languages I have in my story. I don't know which one yet, but that's kind of the backstory of it. Probably something to do with the language that the Defelic speak, which there's 2 different languages that they speak in Direfell. So I'll have to figure out which one I want and then kind of go in that. But the meaning behind Vexhold is those left behind, because that's kind of what happened. They went there to build a fortress, a stronghold type thing for Direfell in case they get attacked, and then they lose contact with Direfell because they got attacked and stuff. So they're just kind of left there with no orders, nothing to do. They send some people back and they never return. Just, yeah. So this is kind of the origin of their name. They built Stone Harrow, which was going to be that military outpost stronghold thing I was talking about. And in the story, you see Stone Harrow, but not as much outside. They've now dug into the mountains, into different caverns and stuff like that. And they made like ancestral halls in there where they've carved names and symbols and stuff all over like the walls of it. And that's like their memory, remembering things. So all the different islands, all the different clans have a sense of remembering the past. That's kind of like their core semblance between them all. They just have different ways to do it, which kind of plays into the whole Echoes of Exile ordeal, as well as the 12th Captain, remembering the dead, this and that. So that's kind of how they do it. They have ancestral halls where they've got carvings and stuff on the walls. Um, and yeah, that's it. Let's see here. What else? They actually have like more stone roads, stone outposts, defensive walls because it was originally going to be a defensive stronghold, unlike all the other islands and stuff. But it's mostly ruined now, and it's not been upkept because it wasn't ever used as that, so they don't. And I believe I mentioned their insignia in the story. I don't know if I've mentioned any of the others. I might have Bleakhorns, maybe. But their insignia is a black ram. It's a tierbuck, which in my world is like a ram goat type creature. Um, it's like a black skull of theirs, split with a red river. That's what I wrote down. But a red cracked split between it on a gray background, which is like a broken skull with like a blood cut type ordeal because of the fracture. Because the Bleakhorns were originally, before the exiles and stuff, Clan Bleakhorn was formed from the Clan Vexhold after a disagreement, skirmish, whatever type ordeal, they kind of broke away and this and that. So that's what the skull being split by Red River is like. It's the clan had split into two, and that's actually the mark of when they became a clan. Because before that, they wasn't. They still, hold on hope to be contacted by Direfell and stuff like that. Their motto is "By salt and stone we endure," which, a lot of salt references in the story. Was it basalt stones or whatever, cliffs, as well as salts from the seas and the fog, wherever. So you get salts in your eyes and stuff, burns. And then they endure. They've lived behind. They've had to survive. So they've done that. They're obsessed with stonecraft and legacy, which legacy is like I was talking about with remembering stuff. That's kind of more their idea, not just remembering anything and everything, but a legacy, leaving something behind to be remembered by. Every generation must add a new carving or a whole new chamber if it's already once already filled up to their ancestral halls. They forge bone steel weapons, which is scrap metal blended with crushed bones of fish or whatever other animals. They kind of make a steel type hybrid out of it. They don't really use it as weapons, but they use that as like their tools or whatever. That's how they make them. And they believe that dueling and fighting is legal, like fighting to the death, but only if the winner finishes their opponent's final task. So they believe, like, again, with the legacy aspect of it, that each person is given a legacy. They are given a task that they must fulfill before their lives over, in a sense, or maybe multiple, depending on what it is. Whether it's raising a child, somebody else has given them, or some type of task of some sort, building something, whatever. That's what they are gifted with. So you might, be raising a boy, you'd be like, hey, we need a new fortress tower built. So, you're just a kid now, but before you get old and die, you got to have that built. But they believe that they can duel and fight people and kill them, and then the winner has to take upon that person's thing. So if they think somebody can't do it, or if somebody doesn't want to do it anymore, if they don't want to do their task, they can offer to fight, preferably die, I guess, at that point, and somebody else would take upon their task. But if you're not willing to take upon that task, then you're not able to kill them, because that would be your responsibility at that point. Because they want each person to be able to leave some type of legacy behind. Let's see here. They have different titles, like a warden, a forge father, and Horomark. Horomark is someone that you get to mention, or you get to see. I was mentioned dog bark in Echoes of Exile, so I won't go too much into detail But they're kind of, yeah. I won't go into too much detail. There's not much detail mentioned about them. So, yeah. But they would be more the, I guess, leader, not really leader, but they are a respective individual, I guess, would be a proper term. So that's all the actual clans from the different islands. There is another, I guess you could call it clan, and it's what Lyra is. It's Tidekin. A Tidekin is scavengers, exiles, or whatever that refuse to align with a particular clan. It's like, nah, I don't want to carry around driftmark tokens. I don't want to build cairns. I don't want to do this, whatever. They're kind of the free folk of the free folk, top ordo, and they're referred to as tidekin because they come and go with the tide. They're not anchored to any clan or island or anything like that. So there's that. Let's see. I ain't got much left here. Okay, I'm gonna go to this section. I was talking about memory vessels earlier. I don't know what all I covered. I can't remember that far back now. So I've got a little bit here. I'll go back into it. This is kind of pulled from my little history thing that I've written for myself. So just bear with the wording and phrasing. But in desperation, one sect of settlers known as the Roots tried to outwit the gods. This is referring to the Felic, I believe. I would have to go look at all of the whole section, but yeah, tried to outwit the gods. And they believe the plagues were divine wrath, this year's plague, like I mentioned, or weren't divine wrath, but punishment for forgetting something vital, a truth, a warning. To preserve memory and stave off the course, they created memory vessels, carved stones, tokens, driftwood etchings, bones, scrolls, anything, each imbued with memory through ritual with the use of whisper blooms, a hallucinogenic flower. These vessels were buried in a sacred site, are buried in sacred sites or cast into the sea as offerings. Some were passed down through, though many were lost or broken. The tradition lingers, fractured, and become a mix of superstition, rites, and weapons. Some modern islanders and clan members still carry vessels. Others fear them. Some say they whisper in the moon's if the moon's high and the sea is still. So that's kind of a little bit of folklore, backdrop story of memory vessels, I guess. I don't know, something like that. So yeah, I think that's about everything on here. I ain't gonna go through all the other stuff. Sure, save that. So yeah, so that's remove that. That is kind of the Black Islands. Like I said, second, let me find something else here. Image file. I have everything divided up in so many folders just because I have so much shit. And now trying to find it, I had to click through a billion things, it seems. Okay, here we go. So, let's see here. All sounds good. Thank you, thank you. After run, but I will be sure to fill out the form. Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm sure it'll probably be right up your alley with the dark fantasy horror-esque type. I don't really want to say supernatural, but yeah, a little bit, I guess you could say. Anyway, so here is an image I had created with AI, and then I kind of tweaked it a little bit with my own know-how. But mainly just AI with this. The characters of Kaylin and stuff, I actually tweaked a little bit more heavily myself because it would not do the gills and some other issues I was having. But well, so this was kind of like an early mock-up sketch, but this is kind of what I got as my placeholder mock-up for the cover. It's supposed to be kind of Kaylin with a drift mark token or something right here, his dagger. And then Echoes of Exile, which is a Lands of the Abyss novel. So yeah, it takes, like I said, it takes place in the same world as Metagore. It takes place thousands of years actually in the future. past that, but it has nothing to do with Medagore. So if y'all haven't read that, y'all ain't got to. It's fine. But yeah, so there's that. I don't really know what all I want to say too much about the story itself, besides what I've already kind of mentioned. But so I got text. Okay, it's my wife. So yeah, I don't really know what else to mention for that, in a sense. I know I just kind of went over the Black Islands, which is kind of like the place for the story, the setting, and you do get to see all the main islands. It starts in, like I said, Kalen gets exiled and sent to driftwood rest in the Bleak Isles, and he spends some time there, and then he starts making his way around. He goes from there to New Home Isle, up to Gravehook, Fangal, and then ends at Desira's Spine. So he kind of goes around there. There's mentions of Gravedrift Shoals. You'll get to see that because they make some dumb decisions and decide to take a boat on their own instead of the ferry and go through there. And yeah, that happens. So you can see that. You can see the masks and stuff from the Hollow Shade. You get to see the Driftmark tokens from Bleak Corn clan. You get to see other memory vessels. Like I said, I got some sign language in there and stuff like that from the Finn speaker and stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit of that. I hope y'all enjoy it. Again, I have a link down in the description. You can click on to sign up to become an alpha reader if you think any of that kind of world building stuff is cool and things like that. You want to read it, check it out. If you've read some other stuff or haven't, it doesn't matter. This is its own standalone story. As well as I added something in the forum where you could opt in to read the 12th Captain, which I've kind of made references to throughout this, which is a short story, like a flash fiction, I think is what's properly called. But it is 670 some odd words, I believe, something like that. So if y'all want to read that, just kind of for the fun of it. And right now, Echoes of Exile is sitting at 53,662 words, which is also with the chapter titles and all that kind of stuff. So a little over 53,000, somewhere in there. So if y'all want to go check that out, the link's down in the description. I don't really know if there's anything else I really want to do. What all do I got in this file? No. But yeah, I guess that's going to be it for this. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all learned something. I learned you something today. Now, I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I look forward to anybody that wants to read it. I'm looking forward to y'all's feedback. I hope y'all enjoy it and like it, and then, yeah, hope y'all like Lyra and Caitlin's little banters here and there. They're kind of, like I said, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I haven't really written much. Well, I've been working on this for a few months now, I guess. But I hadn't really written much outside of my memoir. I've been working on my memoir off and on for a while. And I hadn't really written much outside of that. I've still been going through and doing some revisions to Sovereign Duties. I've wrote a couple more chapters to Rise of Power, which is the third Medagore book. But for the most part, I was just kind of like, I want to write fantasy, but it's just, I don't know. I was getting burnt out again. I hadn't even been writing that much from Medagore, so I was like, you know what? I like doing world building and stuff. I was like, I like doing that. Let's go through and world build some. So I opened up a map. I was like, I've got some for Direfell. I've got some for Panora. I've got Medagore. I've got a lot for Lafir. Some for Shane. And I was like, Cleggery, I got some. I was like, let's find some. I was like, Black Islands. Black Islands is the one. I was like, I wasn't too happy with the map. I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted. I just knew I wanted some rough islands, rough storms, kind of eerie, and stuff. I was like, let's sit down and do that. And Yeah, I've got a lot. Like I said, like I think 40 pages or almost 40 pages for just history and stuff. Which a lot of that has like the clan information, like I read off, but in more detail and stuff like that. So like a world building type sections as well as the history, which also something I think I will do since I'm talking about that. Where is that history? Do 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 do. Yeah, 41 pages. Good God. All right. So there's different sayings, quotes, whatever about this, but there's also some songs, like I mentioned, like Fangal, the Fell word. They have songs that they sing from time to time, doing different things. Here, okay, here's a song. I don't think this one made it. I wrote a few little songs or verses or whatever here and there. I don't think this one made it. I think these others did, or at least in part. But yeah, I wrote this one more for the 12th captain, or thinking of the 12th captain, because 12th captain or the Hollow Fleet is kind of what that whole area is kind of referred to as, or the group of adventurers that found it. That's the Hollow Fleet that discovered it for Direfell, and then they kind of disappeared and stuff. But the 12th captain is the name of the actual story itself. But this is a little song. So what is it? About 16, so like the length of a verse. I'm not going to sing it. I don't even know how I want it sung. If I do sing it, a lot of it's even mentioned that it's not sung like to a tune. It's just kind of like almost like a nursery, not really a nursery rhyme, but just kind of whatever, I guess. So this one, I'll just leave y'all with this. Count the cairns, but not allow. The 12 still walks beneath the shroud. 11 sailed, none return. The sea kept what the sea had earned. 1 for storm and 2 for tide. 3 were drowned and 4 just lied. 5 forgot and 6 were blind. 7 left their names behind. 8 grew hollow, 9 grew cold. 10 were wise, but not that bold. And 12th, oh 12th, she stayed behind. To take the names the rest can't find. To bite the bone and bare your teeth. Speak no name when fall creeps neath. Less wind inside and ghost and nail kill, nail, yeah, nail. Bring your soul where none can dwell. So yeah, that's his. That's I don't know. I had some quotation marks in there. Oh wait, yeah, that one's stupid. There we go. So yeah, so it kind of goes through the 12. The 12 still walks beneath the shroud. 11 sailed, none returned. Talking about the 11 original people going to the Black Islands from Direfell or wherever to discover it. Let's see what else was hidden in here. 1 for storm, 2 for tide. I just kind of went for that whole, 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, close the door type ordeal. I'm just kind of going through the 11. Except at one point, I know I mentioned it or kind of read this. I think to my wife or somebody, and he's like, "You went from 10 to 12. You skipped 11 because it's like 8 grew hollow, 9 grew cold, 10 were wise, but not that bold, and 12th, oh 12th, she stayed behind to take the names the rest can't find." I was like, I don't know. I was trying to think of something else to incorporate 11 in there, but I didn't. And I was like, you know what? Earlier I mentioned 11 cells, so whatever. And these are just descriptions of them. It's not, actually saying this is number 1 and this is what number 2 was. This is what number 3 was. So I was like, yeah, maybe not all 11 were the same. So who knows? But either way, that's that. I'll leave y'all with that. I hope y'all enjoyed. I know I haven't streamed or did a video or anything in forever. So, yeah. Yeah, save. I guess I didn't know I made any changes. Either way, I hope y'all enjoyed. And yeah, if y'all want to, like I said, read either of those, being alphas, I'm going to just first drafts. Yeah, just click on that description or the link down in the description, and let me know. And I will get it emailed to you and the questionnaire and stuff like that. But until then, peace out, Ely. Everybody love everybody.